Welcome to another episode here, Rolland Market Mashup, Friday morning. Another day in the market, ending the week. Had a big debate last night. I mean, Dad, right off the bat, did you expect some sort of market move today from the debate?
Well, I think what's kind of taken the limelight is that Gilead's drug was approved for use, the one that Trump had the cocktail on. So that followed by Trump saying we're rounding the corner. The market is obviously liking that news. Intel is in the Dow. They had bad earnings. And disappointing earnings. I wouldn't say they were bad, but their margins were reduced. Mm-hmm. Too much competition, as everybody already knows, but they dropped that significantly after market. So that's actually a damper on the Dow today. But other than that, things look pretty good. I thought the debate was a lot of fun to watch, much better than the results of the Giant game. And I think if you're neutral going into that debate, it's hard to say that Trump did not win.
I mean, I'm just curious with the way Biden broke down how he's getting rid of the oil industry. How do you take that as a stockholder in energy and, in general heading forward here?
Well, if you listen to some of the oil companies and what they say in their quarterlies and they're all thinking down the road that this stuff is going to happen. They're all involved in other forms of energy. They may not say it as bluntly as Biden said it last night. And I don't think Biden meant to do that, but things just come out of his mouth.
He said it.
He can't help himself. But, companies like BP, which we've talked about a number of times, are preparing for the non-oil days. They are doing a lot of stuff in green energy to get ready for what ultimately will probably end up happening, whether, Trump believes it or not. That will happen at some point.
It seems like Elon Musk is a major winner out of this regardless when you think about it. I mean, the fact where the narrative's headed, he predicted this years ago. And now Tesla, I look at as a interesting play post-election. Any way you spin it, regardless of who's in office, it's good for the environment. And I think that's something that's worth for our viewers thinking about. We've talked about it a bit, but stocks that are green friendly for the future of, generations being around on the planet, that's something to think about. And Tesla is in that category.
One thing that Trump said, they were talking about the wind turbines. And he said it kills all the birds. And that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And, you could see the smirk on Biden's face, like, oh, here he goes. He doesn't know.
Well, that's his senile smirk. He does that when he doesn't remember what's going on.
No,
I agree with Blake.
What's that?
I agree with Blake. He kept randomly just laughing in moments where it just seemed like he
lost it.
Was losing.
Come on. I mean, the guy was completely...
The whole Abraham Lincoln thing was...
Yeah, he thought he was debating Lincoln for a minute.
Yeah.
And Trump,
let's face it, Trump if you take away the idea that Trump is president, he is one funny guy. And
even as president, he's very funny.
But I think some people are just mortified, but that this is the president of the United States, and it's insulting to their intelligence. And
even though they've never met the guy and have zero, that's what always cracks me up about politics. You got to separate the person from the policies. And that's where I'm just trying to think of as an investor here for our show, even what narrative, what even to take out of that, and trying to figure out what stocks are neutral, regardless of which one of these nut jobs is going to be at the helm.
When you go back to the Tesla comment and you look at green energy in general, I think it doesn't really matter who wins the election. I think people know that long term the narrative is baked in. If this will not baked into these stock prices, but where we're heading.
Right. And that's actually a very true comment, because big Democrats, when Trump got elected, were absolutely beyond being able to be pacified, or you couldn't talk to people. And one of the reasons they felt that a lot of the companies were going to go backwards on the environment. These companies put in policies that take literally sometimes decades to get to the point they want to be at. So when they started on the environmental cleanliness path, they don't stop because Trump comes in and takes away the regulations. The regulations have nothing to do with the direction these companies are going, regardless of who's the president. They're already on the path of cleaner water, getting rid of smoke, all the things that people want, because that's good for their company. And that's what's really going on out there with most companies.
Yeah, no, I think you make up a great point. And I'll tell you what stock chart that I absolutely love right now, and I haven't looked at it in a while. We talked about them a bunch, but Plug. I mean, look at their chart right now. It's well off its highs.
What's it
Yeah,
trading at?
that's a nice looking chart. It is.
Where is it at right now?
1535 is the last offering price. It's had a huge move up, and it came all the way back down to fill the gap. If you look at the daily chart on Plug, it had a gap from about 1430 to 1467. And people like to see those gaps filled before they can feel comfortable about the stock moving higher. And it came down, I don't know if it was yesterday, but all the way down to 1434, which is close enough. It's a perfect gap fill, actually.
So it could be a good buying opportunity there.
Buying opportunity. Mike, this is a perfect opportunity for a situation where we load up on Plug, and then we look at, I had to close down E-Trade because it was screwing up my internet, so I'm not looking at the chart right now. But is it at what, 1450 right now?
No, it's 1534 right now.
And what was the all-time highs?
19 and change.
Yeah, this is a situation where I'm probably going to load up on Plug for a swing trade and then look at covered call options at like the $19 to $20 range for like sometime in November and just keep playing that game. Because if you look at Plug chart, and again, I don't have it in front of me, but every time it's done this, it's come down a little bit below the 20-day moving average and then comes right back up and soars to new highs. And there's no doubt, like what we're talking about, whether or not Biden, Trump, doesn't matter who wins. Like Dad said, that's the future. And Plug has clearly redefined themselves. They've made tons of acquisitions just because of their stock soaring. They've taken advantage of what's happened with the financials of their stock. And unfortunately, I've missed out on this run. I mean, I've been out of Plug since like $6, but I feel like this is a good opportunity to get back in. Yeah,
and Zillow is starting to look appealing.
Let's take a look at Zillow.
We got under 98 yesterday. I'm on the sidelines right now again on Zillow. I've been waiting to get back in it, and it was up to 112 a couple weeks ago, and kind of has just been in this holding pattern and dipped a bit. I know earnings are in 2 weeks. That's an interesting one.
I've held it from 97 all the way up to like that 112 level and then all the way back down, and I'm just almost flat on it. I'm up a little, but I'm frustrated because I felt like, I don't know, I don't want to say I felt like it was going to like really break out, because I guess it kind of did, but it sucks that it's back below 100. I'd love to see it kind of rest back above those levels at least.
Well, it could be setting up for a big breakout with earnings. If you remember the last time Zillow acted before earnings, I bought it and it ran up like crazy after earnings. That's why I'm starting to
the one thing with these real estate stocks, and I don't know if you put Zillow into it, but you could put Rocket into it. We talked about it way back, and I was wrong on Rocket, but this frenzy of buying real estate and refinancing is going to come to an end, or it's going to slow down. And I think that's what people are starting to think about, because rates can't keep going down, or that's the belief, and they have creeped up a little. So if you were refinancing and you didn't do it 3 weeks ago, it's costing you about a quarter more which doesn't sound like a lot, but every eighth of a point in an interest rate crowds out people that can't afford new housing. It's at the margin that people are able to afford new housing. And as those rates drop, it brings in more people and vice versa. So I think that's why these stocks are either churning or moving lower now, in the belief that things are going to slow down on the real estate front.
Do you think though Zillow is in that ballgame, or are they more like a tech?
It doesn't matter.
They're a tech company.
Well, that's why I'm saying they may not be in that same group exactly, but there are people that look at it as a real estate company. And I wouldn't be surprised if it would be in the ETFs or looked at as a group. So it may be that Zillow outperforms on a relative basis, but it may not be as powerful on the upside for that reason.
I mean, Zillow too, it could easily come back down to 75, 80 and then, go break through in the years ahead with this new shift. But
yeah, this could be early. The excitement was there on Zillow because of what's going on with this new CEO who was the old CEO. And it could take 2-3 years before things really happen and he's successful with it. So I think the stock did get way ahead of this guy, but you just don't know. I mean,
it was trading at 19 back in March. So,
well, yeah, it's almost tough to really look at any of the prices in March because it seemed like the world was trying to play it off like we were.
Well, it just helps me keep things in perspective. When some of these stocks I'm not in that I want to be in, I wait and kind of like, okay, well, it's not like this thing can't come down somewhat.
Yeah, no, for sure. But Dad, what I was going to say is I don't know why I keep forgetting this guy's name, but the same guy that you always talk about that I said was kind of not saying the best things about Netflix and is a big Apple guy. What's his name again?
Gene Munster.
Yeah, he loves Zillow. And he came on this Market Rebellion show with the Nigerian brothers a couple of weeks ago and was kind of talking about Zillow as potentially, and he wasn't like, I'm not saying I'm like 100% all in on this yet, but he's like, but I think they're going to be the next, quadruple time gainer like the FANG group.
And
they are. I mean, Leo calls them the Google and Amazon of real estate combined.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's not the case, but it's all timing, right?
I think it's a long-term holding, if anything. It's something that if you believe in where the world's heading with real estate and advertising with them, you just hold it. That's
that's fair enough.
Yeah, well, after I saw that interview, that's what I decided. I used to kind of trade in and out of it. And
Gene Munster is an analyst who's front and center. He has very strong convictions, and he's been behind Apple for years and years, and that gives him a lot of credibility. And every time that guy speaks, people do pay attention. He may not be right, but
yeah.
He's been right on that.
Always right.
Hmm?
Nobody's always right.
Right.
Even we make mistakes.
So you got
U.S. Steel, not a mistake. This stock.
I shouldn't have gotten out of that one.
This stock is on a roll. It's $9.60 right now.
I got out $1 ago.
I've been selling like 1,000. I'm just trying to get out on a scale. I think you could just be holding this thing. It could actually get to its old highs the way it's acting. Not quickly, but this thing was a $14.50 stock earlier in the year.
And they
What's
keep
going on with Boozy?
Well, before Boozy, Dad, are you also scaling out of Ford?
Not yet, because I don't think Ford's had enough of a move. Steel moves a lot quicker, and you're able to make sales, and then it fills in. You could buy it, so you could really trade around a nice core position.
And you got to think an infrastructure bill's coming regardless after this election, right?
Well, without a doubt. And Ford is acting great also, but I just think it's got more room to run here before I start making sales.
But that's definitely, when we think about the future and what to play regardless of who's in office, thinking about infrastructure, thinking about 5G. There are certain things that are just obvious that you want to get into. So you should start thinking about those types of sectors and what stocks are going to be part of your portfolio.
Yeah. But, these car companies, obviously, they're all moving towards electric or trying hydrogen, whatever it is. That's where it's going. I mean, obviously, people are going to be buying those cars, and that's where the manufacturers will have to be to satisfy demand.
Mm-hmm.
And GM's doing it, Ford is doing it, all led by Tesla and all these other electric car companies. I think we mentioned Norway is 50% electric cars now in the whole country. So,
well, yeah, I think so. I remember my buddy telling me when he was there with his girlfriend that they reward taxi drivers in taxes to have Teslas. So
that's the other side of it. It can get pushed ahead by a Biden victory because they'll probably put more tax credits in for solar, wind.
And that's something to think about of other companies. If you want to think about stocks to run up with, of getting credits for the government for eco-friendly purposes. If Biden's in office, Beyond Meat. I know you guys know I love them. That's another prime example.
Like what? Yeah, I saw they kind of sold off to what? Where are they right now?
I'm getting ready to buy more. I'm only long 75 shares right now, so I'm kind of
I look at the
172 and change.
Yeah, Beyond Meat is
getting very sexy. If you look at this chart, this thing's getting ready to go way back up. I just know it's happening here.
167 is good support.
I'm going to be doing put options, I think, today, like long-term for Beyond, and getting very aggressive with my conviction.
167 and 147, 148 would be the entry level.
I'm going to look at $200 puts about 9-12 months out.
Oh, wait, Mike, I missed that. I lost service.
I said I'm going to get aggressive with my conviction on Beyond here and take advantage of this dip and look at some puts about the $200 range a year from now.
I love it. Those will definitely hit. It's probably a great move.
Because, worst case, I'm going to end up buying the stock 10% lower than where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last move down, it was from 167 down to 120, right? And now it went from 197 and a half. It might only be halfway there right now.
Halfway where?
To where it's going down to.
No.
Before it starts going up again.
I haven't owned these companies in the past. Have you guys are big on Carvana, right?
I've never owned it.
KR?
I don't know if it's KR.
Carvana. No. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but just because I thought it was interesting, and I'll never actually listen to like a company that comes out mad money and be like, oh man, I should buy them. But hearing them and Lithium Motors and like what they're doing and trying to basically make it where you don't have to go to dealerships anymore and you could just buy a car, it'll show up in your driveway, and then you could return the car within a week if you don't like it, no questions asked. And they just launched this. There's two different companies. There's Carvana and then there's Lithium Motors. Lithium Motors, I think, is LID is the ticker, and then Carvana. And Lithium Motors just launched this app, driveway.com or Driveway. And it's similar to what I was just talking about with Carvana, where it's basically being able to buy a car and cut out the dealership. And when you think about where the world's going and how everything's kind of starting to become digitalized, it's not crazy to think that those are kind of revolutionary concepts. And I don't know which chart I was looking at. I don't have it pulled up right now, but the one that's in the 250-ish range, one of them looked like it had come down nice. I think it was Carvana, and looked like an interesting level. Are you guys looking at those at all?
I haven't looked at them.
I like the model concept. I think that instant gratification play is always good with people.
And this Lithium Motors company, LAD, he was the one that was getting interviewed, and they were talking about how their profit for this past year was $250 million. Part of their strategy is they're going around and they're buying these private dealerships all over the country, which apparently is like, these are great businesses, private dealerships, which I never knew. They're expensive to get into. And, normally it's families and they pass them down. And that's what this guy was talking about. And he's saying sometimes these acquisitions will take up to 5 years, but part of our strategy is we're buying out tons of dealerships all over the country. And then we're doing this direct to driveway model. And it just sounded really interesting to me.
I love that.
Did you say the symbol is LAD?
I think so. Lithium motors, is that right?
Yeah, getting rid of friction when it comes to anything, as we see, like what
Lithium
not.
motors.
It's
Not
the same
lithium.
thing.
Lithia, LAD is the ticker. I
Got
haven't even looked at the chart. It was
I mean,
something
who likes dealerships? You know, like the thought of being able to get rid of the car salesman in person. That's
Yeah.
great.
You know, you think back on some of the dealerships, like the Milwaukee Bucks owner was a car dealer. You know, they made a ton of money, those guys who own the dealerships. That was always a lucrative business forever.
Bob's guy Maloof.
I mean, this guy was saying that their profits are 250 million, and that's just with the traditional dealership model. And now they're trying to evolve it, obviously. But
Maybe we have to get in the car business.
I mean, like even I heard Kramer talking about it. Apparently, he's tried to get in the car business and like round up his friends to buy a dealership, and it's just that hard. Like they're a fortune to buy because of what a good business it is, which I never knew, but I guess it makes sense. But you know.
Well, I think just the notion of having a hub for distribution in general is very appealing, as we always talk about offline.
Yeah. But do you, Dad, do you like either of those charts, either Carvana?
Yeah, well, I mean, these stocks have moved up, you know, crazy. You know, it was a $55 stock. It's now 250.
Is that Carvana or is that the LID one?
That's the LAD.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it's
tough.
It's hard to get too excited at these levels.
And Dad, what are your thoughts on just the market levels in general? Because I feel like we've been in this shop range, and it's either going to break out to the upside or break out to the downside.
Well, let's see who wins the election.
I think there's been people have been using the tech sector for a source of funds, and money is definitely going into the cyclicals, which we've been seeing in the steels of the world. And I think some of the railroads have been getting money, and that seems to be what's going on in the market. And part of the tech sells are people adjusting for capital gains that may come in the future. So taking some profits this year and going in stocks that really have been in the gutter for a while. So Apple was down yesterday, and it's really hard, it seems, for Apple to move up because it's a source of funds. Same thing with Microsoft. And then obviously there's been a lot of sell-off in some of the bigger names, which we've seen.
And what do you guys think about this Uber Lyft talk with California labor laws? How to play that?
I mean, I don't know.
I thought they were voting on it. Did it already take place, or did they?
I mean, now there'll be the appeal process for a long time. I'm sure.
Isn't it on the ballot in November for that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, Mike, it's getting voted on.
Yeah, but there's supposedly this is just going to drag on regardless.
Yeah, so
that's the thing. I don't see Uber at all losing this long term.
I think Uber's a great buy right now. I own some, and I'm going to continue to build my position. I think the original Uber model, they announced a price hike a couple days ago, and it caused their stock to get a nice pop. And I think Uber Eats is crushing it. And what's his name? Josh Brown on CNBC said it best. The whole public transportation with people taking Ubers, it's going to come back with a vengeance when the pandemic's gone.
And self-driving's coming before we know it. And that's really when they're going to be crazy.
And whether it does or doesn't, it doesn't even matter. Uber, similar to these other big-time tech companies, they've given the customer the privilege of having these low prices. And at the end of the day, Uber can more than double their prices and hardly see a drop off and rise. It's the convenience factor that people love, and it's time they start increasing their prices. And that's clearly what they're doing. And if they're ever able to get rid of the driver and just have self-driving cars, great. The pricing can go back down. But for now,
the pricing won't even go back down. It won't have to.
That's my point, though. And I think they're killing it with Uber Eats. And it's helping them survive right now because obviously the Uber business is not as strong during the pandemic. And you look at their chart, they've come down a ton. And when that company eventually gets back to all-time highs, they're going to wreck. And we're going to look back at these prices. And I think it's a great company to be able to own right here.
I mean, yeah, I'm long Uber.
Yeah, me too. And I'm going to continue to add to them. And, Snapchat, just so you guys know, 2 days ago when they had that earning and they were up like 35%, and then they dipped a little bit, I bought more at 36. And look at them now. They're almost at 40 because that company's nowhere near done. They're starting a trend. And what I think is happening now is they probably reported that earnings. So many people are like caught off guard and they're like, whoa, Snap is becoming like a legit company where people are turning to with advertising money. And then all these hedge fund managers are going home talking to their kids about how much they use Snap, and they're realizing that they got to get in that man. And you look at the market cap, it's around 50 bill. It's eventually going to be over 200 bill. And you could say the same thing about a lot of these companies. Pinterest, Dad and I were talking before the show started. It's crazy how these companies report earnings every quarter, because we know in our business, nothing really changes quarter to quarter. Maybe every 6 months, more so annually. But Pinterest had a huge quarter last quarter. They're going to have a huge quarter again. It's not like anything's changed in the last 3 months.
They just keep building. A lot goes on when you have that kind of brand prowess when it comes to user activation and advertising.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no doubt when these stocks get into their ATH all-time high ranges and they break through these previous levels, they could really, really rip. And I think that's what you've been seeing the last few days in Snapchat. You're seeing it in Pinterest.
Yeah, I think you just have to be careful if Biden wins, of people kind of treading carefully for a while with taxes, because that's a major issue with the tax rates, and even wanting to up capital gains. That's going to affect those.
So what's the capital gain situation? Like, what would he change that to?
He wants to change it to your whatever rate you pay. So if you're in the upper tax bracket, it'll go from 20% to 39.7.
So what about on just regular short-term trades? Like if you buy and sell
that'll be that's your tax rate too. So it almost seems like he's not making any differential from short or long term. But I mean, until you really get the law, you don't know what it's going to look like. So I don't think it'll look as bad as it sounds, but it's not going to be good, whatever it is. It'll cost everybody money.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, here's how I see that. It's like, okay, maybe people are pulling out of the market because they're trying to pay less tax on gains for the short term. But at the end of the day, if Biden wins, which who knows what's going to happen? Maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't. But if he wins, there's higher taxes. And then what? You get back to what you're doing, and you look at it like for the next 4 to 8 years, you're paying a higher percentage in taxes. You're not going to stop investing. You're not going to stop trading because you're paying a little bit more to the government.
The stuff you got to worry about, because they did this in Europe from time to time, is if they start taxing transactions, and then you got to worry about it.
When you say transactions, what do you mean?
Like if you buy a stock, you're going to get taxed every time you buy a stock and sell a stock.
That would be terrible. Yeah.
And they have stuff like that in Europe. So it's not unheard of, but a transactional tax, because there's so many people trading.
They're not going to do that. They're better off just getting marijuana streamlined. That's really why.
Well, Dad, let me ask you, if Trump won, is there a chance the taxes go down more? Or
big time. He wants to get rid of capital.
Well, not big time, because chances are if Trump wins, it's going to be a split Congress anyway. So
it was funny, though, how he brought up, he's like, I think we're going to win the House because of Nancy. And, he planted a nice seed there.
Yeah, good luck winning the House.
Never know.
That would be insane if that happened.
That was when you saw like a legit smirk on Biden's face, where he's like, that ain't happening.
Come on. That's working. That guy is awful.
But I guess that does it. I mean,
yeah, lots of names to look at, and as usual, people are going to come out today and say no clear winner, all that nonsense. But
just when I'm sitting here, I mean, I haven't, just in the last few hours, there's some stocks that have definitely come off here, unless it's just Fastly that's really dropping off. But this morning, I was up way more in my portfolio than I am right now. So I don't know what's dropping.
Yeah, the election's right around the corner. We're going to see a lot of choppiness.
Well, you also will not get when your portfolio is priced, there's no option pricing until it opens. So if stocks are going down and you have call options, it's not going to show up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subscribe to us, Rolland Market Mashup. Make some money. We'll see you Monday.
Boom. Have a good weekend.
So let's see here.